Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Croucher, and I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at Unchained Labs. I will be your moderator today, and thank you for joining us. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. To ask questions, all you have to do is click on Q&A in the Zoom navigation bar, which is at the top or the bottom of your screen, and type in your question. When submitting a question, please avoid clicking the anonymous button so that we can reach out via email if we aren't able to get to your question, but we will get to as many of them as we can. So now I'd like to introduce Martha Perez, the Marketing Director at Unchained Labs. And today, Martha will walk us through how to make LNPs on Nunchuck. She'll get into the details of how Nunchuck works and will show data generated from LNPs made on a Nunchuck via a total flow rate screen and a large volume LNP prep run. So now I'll hand it over to Martha. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan. I'm super excited to be able to share with you today, and I will start sharing my slides. There we go. I am so excited to be here sharing with you about Nunchuck skills. Now, you might be wondering, what are Nunchuck skills? And as Napoleon Dynamite would say, researchers only want instruments with good skills, and Nunchuck has great LNP making skills. Now, a little bit of backstory. We'll start with this little pest. This is the COVID-19 virus, and we all know how COVID came into the world and really turned things upside down. The world had to put all their tools together to fight this back. And one of the greatest tools that we've had in the fight against COVID-19 has been vaccines. To date, over 12 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered worldwide. And over 70% of those vaccines have been mRNA LNP-based vaccines. Now, some people thought that they were new things that were just invented with the advent of COVID-19, but they actually have been around for over 30 years. Now, why haven't more people heard about them widely? Well, because they're pretty difficult to make. Just like that cake that you try to replicate from social media, it's harder to make than it looks. LNPs, as we know, are very versatile tools. They are great at having a variety of different targets and a variety of different functions. How does this versatility come into being? Well, because of the two basic parts that they're made up of. First, the lipid layer. The lipid layer can be constructed from a variety of different lipids or multiple kinds of lipids put together, and those lipids can also be functionalized. So that will lend a lot of different functionalities to the LNPs. Another part of an LNP is the payload. The payload could be DNA or different kinds of RNA like mRNA or siRNA, or proteins, or really any active pharmaceutical compound can be the payload of an LNP. Additionally, another characteristic of an LNP is the size, and the size can be very instrumental in what an LNP can end up doing, like the cell or the organ that it ends up targeting. So how are people making LNPs now? Current solutions fall short of what scientists are looking for. Current solutions can be very kludgy, kind of homegrown instruments that are hard to use. They may not have fit for purpose software that people can use easily, or they can be, having to fiddle with a lot of tubing that you have to replace or clean and then wonder if it's clean or not. Or another option is you might have to buy one box that is small, and maybe you can do small preps on it and some screening on another tool. And then if you want to make a large volume, then you have to buy even another tool that can be a lot more expensive. So these solutions fall short, and Unchained Labs is all about getting scientists the right tool for the right job, which is Nunchuck. So now we're going to get our sweet, sweet Nunchuck skills on. Nunchuck is Unchained Labs LNP maker, which makes 50 to 200 nanometer size full LNPs and screens up to 8 total flow rates, TFRs, in under 10 minutes. Then you can make a little or a lot from 0.5 to 200 milliliter formulations. So just to orient you a little bit on the hardware, here's the Nunchuck instrument. As you can see, this black box here, that's the Nun. And I'll be showing you that in a second. And we'll have a 10 ml syringe with our aqueous formulation and a 5 ml syringe with the organic formulation, and a waste container and a sample collection vial, which will move under the Nun to collect the LNPs. How do we do all this? Well, the Nun gets it done. Here's a picture of the Nun with its full cover on, completely constructed. Now, you'll never take the top off, but we've done that for you here so that you can see inside. Let's take a closer look on that. As you can see, there's an aqueous inlet and an organic inlet. Syringes will lock into place via lure lock. And then you have a completely encapsulated fluidic pathway within the Nun. So you never have to worry about cleaning the instrument or about contamination. And we have our microfluidic mixing chambers inside our chip. You can see there's a little window here that allows our camera to see into the microfluidic mixing chip, where we can see the flows before you start your mixing experiment, so that the flows of the organic and aqueous start at exactly the same size to fully optimize how many high quality LNPs you can get out of the system. Now, a little bit about the software. White belts are welcome. You guys that are familiar with our software, you know that we keep this user in mind when we create software and make it super easy to use. This is an example of the screening prep experimental parameter setup. We always start from the top left side, and you can see you can select your flow rate ratio from 1 to 10 to 1 to 1 ratio to 10 to 1 ratio, aqueous to organic. Then we select how much sample per total flow rate we want to screen. And up to 8 total flow rates can be selected depending on the other parameters that you've chosen. The instrument guides you effortlessly through the complete setup of the experiment. Now, I will introduce to you the LNP tag team from Unchained Labs. Nunchuck is our LNP maker. And after you make your LNPs on Nunchuck, you'll want to see what size they are and see, what quality LNPs you got. So you would put them on the stunner to use the dynamic light scattering feature of the stunner to get sizing and polydispersity. The next couple of slides, I'm going to show data from LNPs that were created on the Nunchuck and then analyzed on stunner. You will be able to hit your target with our total flow rate screening. When you are making your LNPs, you have a specific size in mind to be able to accomplish the goals of your project. And as you can see here, 2 separate experiments, one on the left, one on the right. The x-axis is the total flow rates that we have tested for this experiment. From here, we've done 2 to 25 milliliters per minute for the flow rate. As you can see on the left-hand side, the hydrodynamic diameter tells us the size of the LNPs that have been produced. On the right-hand side, we have the PDI, or polydispersity index, which is a measure of quality, how homogeneous the population of particles is. As you can see, with the increase in total flow rate, we get a decrease in size of LNPs, exactly as we would expect. And with PDIs less than 0.2, we have high quality LNPs. This is an experiment that was done with SM-102 lipids, and with a poly-A as a payload, we get over 90% encapsulation efficiency for each of these columns. With mRNA, we got over 85% encapsulation efficiency, and you can see the same trends of decreasing size of particle with increasing total flow rate, and even lower numbers for the PDI. Now, when you do a TFR experiment, you're looking at what instrument settings do I need to use in order to get the size particle that I want. And then when you've answered that question, you can use Nunchuck to either make a little or make a lot. Now, this is an experiment where we've leveled it up to 200 milliliters. The first column on this graph, you can see that is the data that we got for the screening run. And we selected these parameters to do a large volume prep run. The x-axis is now the batch number that comes out. So for each of these 10 milliliter batches that we made. And you can see that the sizing is the same throughout the batches, and polydispersity index is relatively the same, all under 0.2 again. And to answer the question, did we get the payload inside the LNPs? The answer is absolutely yes. With the limits of the encapsulation assay that we were running, we got it over 99% for each fraction. Now, your chemistries, your choice. We tried a variety of different chemistries related to LNPs that are widely used. So for example, the graph here shows DOTAP, which is a cationic lipid mix. MC3 and SM-102 were also used, and you can see that they all work similarly in that the size of the LNPs produced decreases as you increase the total flow rate. And the PDIs were still great, and encapsulation efficiencies over 95%. So this is working great, exactly as we expected. We also wanted to answer other questions about the biophysical characteristics of the LNPs. Do they behave exactly as we expect? And the answer just continued to be yes. The LNPs, just the way you want them. This was a measure of the zeta potential of the LNPs produced on Nunchuck. As you can see, we tested them in two different buffers, in a buffer that is pH 5.2 in the yellow bars, and a buffer that is pH 7.4 in the purple bars. As you can see, the DOTAP, which is cationic LNP, is not affected much by the pH of the buffers that it's in. It stays within the neutral area. And SM-102 and MC3 are both ionizable lipids. So in the pH 5.2, they have a positive zeta potential, which is important for endosomal escape and encapsulation efficiency. And in the pH 7.4, which is related to stability in blood and longer circulation times, they have zeta potentials in the neutral zone. So we know that the LNPs are behaving exactly the way we expect them to. So now you got your sweet Nunchuck skills. To remind you, Nunchuck makes full LNP sized from 50 to 200 nanometers. You can screen 8 total flow rates in one experiment. So this is setting up one experiment, one time, push the button. It does it in 8 minutes. And then when you have dialed in the exact size of LNPs that you want to make, you can then make a little or make a lot from 0.5 to 200 milliliters formulations. So now when somebody asks you if you have nunchuck skills, you can tell them, yes, not these nunchuck skills, these nunchuck skills. And I'd love to answer some questions from our audience.
All right, thank you, Martha, for introducing us to how Nunchuck makes LNPs, especially how easy it is to screen different total flow rates and then make tons of LNPs. The example data sets were also quite clear, showing that you can tune your LNP size on Nunchuck, and LNPs made with Nunchuck are high quality. We also saw how Stunner is the perfect partner for Nunchuck, which is also really interesting. So we have some great questions that have already been submitted. Don't forget, you can still ask a question by entering it into the Q&A section of the Zoom navigation bar. But we have a lot in, so I hope you're ready, Martha, for some good questions. So the first one is, what are the maximum and minimum volumes possible with Nunchuck?
Yeah. So the Nunchuck, we're happy to be able to provide an instrument that is very versatile for our customers. Customers can make from 0.5 to 200 milliliter batches, formulations of LNPs on the Nunchuck.
Okay, great, thank you. So next one. Is there any way with Nunchuck to keep a record of what formulations we've used for high throughput screening?
Yeah, so related to our software, if anyone is familiar with our software from other instruments, they will find the look and feel of our software for Nunchuck very familiar. We focus on making the user experience as easy as possible. So we have made it so that you can set up an experiment really fast with some default parameters, generic names, like you can just say aqueous formulation and organic formulation, that's already filled in, and you can just hit the next button to get to your experiment really fast. However, we know other people like to take, more complete notes. And if you want to, you're doing this and you want posterity and the report to read exactly all your ingredients, you have the ability to do that. We have a formulations database where you can put as much information, as many details as you want for those formulations, and it'll store it for you, and you can use them again. You just enter them one time, they'll be saved. You can use them again.
Great, thank you. All right, so on to the next question. We've got here, could we produce more than 200 milliliters maximum volume with Nunchuck?
Yeah, so the maximum that you can program into the software is 200 milliliters. That is what we tested up to, and we know and guaranteed that in the chemistries that we tested, right, there might be some variation with other chemistries, but we did not see a decrease in the quality of the LNPs that were produced up to 200 milliliters. And our recommendation would be to set up another experiment to get more volume with the Nunchuck.
Thank you. So next, what is the minimum and maximum flow rates possible with Nunchuck?
Yeah, so in the experiments that I showed from 2 to 25. That's what we tested in that particular data set. But our actual min and max are 0.5 milliliters per minute to 30 milliliters per minute. So it's a very wide range, and depending on your chemistries, you'd also be able to get a really wide range of LNP sizes. Of course, there's other factors in play, like the type of payload, size of payload, things like that.
All right. So how would I make larger LNPs with Nunchuck than what you've shown today?
Yeah, so you can make larger LNPs. That is something that would be chemistry dependent. So people can test out different lipids that can affect size. Different flow rate ratios also affect size. Again, payload would affect size. The other thing is that the making of LNPs, the beginning of the story for size for LNPs really, and other factors come into play after you make it. Like for example, how long you let it sit in a particular concentration of ethanol. So time's a factor, and then what you dilute it into afterwards is also a factor.
Thank you. Okay, so next one. So is the none single use, or can you use it multiple times?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the none has the potential to, if you're running the same chemistry, you like it showed for TFR, we can run multiple TFRs on one none. That's one consumable that you're using for 8 different total flow rate screenings that in potentially other types of instruments, you would have had to use 8 different consumables for. So we've already programmed that into the instrument where you're testing multiple things with one consumable. We don't have any sort of like washing protocol or anything like that. I would, when you're dealing with microfluidics, these are very, very small chambers. So I wouldn't have any recommendations for that. Having said that, there are no barcodes on the none.
Great, thank you. So I guess kind of related to that, we've got a question: how long can the mixing chip be used, and how do you test that it is cleaned between runs?
Yeah, so we don't have any kind of washing protocol for that. So like I said, we don't, we would not recommend any sort of cleaning protocol. We have tested it up to 200 milliliters of making the LNPs and can stand behind the fact that for the chemistries that we've tested, there's no decrease in the quality of that data. And then, people can validate and optimize different kinds of chemistries on their own. So we would not be have validated the reuse of the consumable.
Great. All right, so what is the dead volume of the system? If I want to make 0.5 milliliters of LNPs, how much starting material do I need?
Yeah, so we do have, as I said, defaults that we put into the system. Those are defaults that we came about through, development. And so for the highest quality of LNPs that we were able to make, we determined that 0.5 milliliters pre-waste should be used. In our hands, we saw that made the highest qualities LNPs, and 0.05 milliliters waste. Post-waste, post-run waste. And that is basically because right at the beginning of the run and right at the end of the run, the flow is not exactly the rate that you have dialed it into quite yet because of how flow works, and it's dialing it up to the level that you have set. And then at the end, it dials down. So the default for pre and post waste is 0.55 milliliters total, but the customer has complete control over that, and they can make that number larger or smaller as they prefer.
Okay, thanks very much. So we have a couple of questions related to syringes. So are there special syringes that you need to use, or can you put in your own disposable syringes?
So the syringe type that the instrument is validated for are BD, Becton Dickinson syringes with the Lura lock tip. And it's the 10 mil for aqueous and 5 mil for organic. And those are the ones we recommend.
Yeah, and related to that, how can we produce 200 milliliters of LNP formulation using a 10 milliliter and 5 milliliter syringe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for the highest versatility of this instrument that we have created, we rely on the robustness of the instrument and the consumable, and you can add more reagents. The instrument pauses when a batch is done, allows you to add more reagents to the instrument and change out the collection vial, add a new empty collection vial and more reagents, hit the go button again, and you're ready to go to make more.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've got here, is it possible to provide a protocol and components for the %EE shown on your slide?
Yes, so what we will provide for our customers when they buy an instrument, we have a starter kit because we have a very robust program of always training our customers to be able to have success with our instruments. So we have a starter kit. That starter kit will include a SM102 lipid kit from Cayman Chemical, which will be used to teach the customer how to make lipid nanoparticles if they're just getting into it, or if they're pros, just to ensure them that the Nunchuck works exactly as we say it works. And so we'll walk them through being able to make LNPs with that, and be there every step of the way to support them to have success with the instrument.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, next question. Can the LNP also be analyzed with KD/B22 for stability assessment?
So KD B22 is usually a technique used with proteins, and it relates to colloidal stability. That is not a technique that we've traditionally used for LNPs. So I would need to just double check if you can use it, but I think it's mostly related to protein colloidal stability.
Quick one, is the chip plastic or glass?
Oh, so the chip has a variety of different materials in it. So there's a cartridge on the outside that's made with plastic, and there's some plastic tubing in it. There is a part of it that where it's a PDMS chip that is bound to glass. So there is a component that is glass, but not all of it.
Thank you. All right, so if the payload is RNA or protein, could the stunner help determine the quality of the encapsulated RNA or protein?
That's a good question. And there are going to be different encapsulation assays that you could use for LNPs. Sometimes you can use the stunner, the UV-Vis part of the stunner, in order to give you information about that. But it depends on chemistry, because as you have lipids in there, sometimes lipids can also have fluorescence in the UV-Vis spectrum. And so that's going to depend on chemistry.
Great. So we need to end this webinar at past. So I will just ask one more question, but we will try and get back to everyone. If you've not submitted anonymously, we should be able to follow up with you by email. So just one more question. What microfluidic mixing chamber does the Nun use? Herringbone? Question. Is it herringbone? Oh,
it's not. From the picture that I showed you, I hope you could see that it's a completely novel patented mixing chambers, and we have 12 chambers in a serpentine pattern that flow through, and yeah, it's a patented mixing chamber that provides non-turbulent chaotic flow and not a herringbone in sight.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for answering all those great questions, Martha. And also thank you again for a great presentation. I also want to thank all of you who joined us today. If you would like to have a deeper conversation with our team, please do get in touch with us at info@unchainedlabs.com, or learn more on our website at unchainedlabs.com. We would love to connect with you. So thank you again for attending our virtual seminar, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.